Mercedes-Benz India has had a slew of launches over the last few weeks. We're now joined by the Vice President Sales and Marketing at Mercedes-Benz India, Santosh Iyer. Santosh, thank you very much for joining us. We've seen several launches from Mercedes, including the S-Class, the Maybach GLS 600, the GLA, the AMG GLA 35 as well. Give us a sense of the customer sentiment you're seeing on the ground.
I think we have all gone through a very torrid time. The last 2 months has been really bad. The second wave really hit us by a bit of surprise. Of course, I think in the automotive industry, there is nothing other than products which excites the market. So we thought that we should not hold back and should unleash the full product offensive. And as you mentioned, we started with the GLA. There we did with a softer note. We just did a press release, announced the prices. And frankly, GLA is also sold out till around July. And then followed that up with the GLS Maybach, which also got sold out. All the first 50 units that we are importing as CBUs are out. And then just last week, end of last week, we did the S-Class CBU edition, which also has got a tremendous response. So I think the sentiments to buy are coming back. And that's also reflected in the inquiry for across our product range. We are also fortunate that our order banks are quite strong. So we should be able to supply cars and actually also try to get back. In fact, our H1 numbers should be almost 50% plus compared to last year H1. If you remember last year H1 also, March and April, we had issues, even May. And so in that sense, I think the second wave has not yet hit so badly. The demand should be back. That's our current focus.
Could you also give us a specific sense of how the numbers will fare compared to last year and also 2019?
Yeah, so H1 for us, we have yet to close June, and a lot depends on the kind of supplies that we get from our production. Frankly, June is the first month where our production colleagues are also fully back. We will expect 100% production now. So a lot will depend on the numbers being churned out by our colleagues there. But looking at, if we look at the current estimates and the trend for the next 10 days time, the H1 should look at least 50% better than last year. So that's a significant growth when you look at compared to last year. But yes, when you compare it with 2019, it will still be not as much as strong. But we have to start looking quarter by quarter. So if I look at quarter one of this year, in our terms, we follow a Jan to December calendar. So Jan to March of this year was almost as good as the quarter one of 2019. So that itself says that pre-COVID levels, the second wave, I mean to say, the market almost had come back and then the second wave happened. So we are sure that when you look at now the quarter three for the calendar year, which is from July to September, we should see a pre-COVID level of recovery. It should ideally come back to quarter one levels.
What would be your sales projection for this entire calendar year?
So we still are committed to a very high double-digit growth. That's what we have said yet compared to last year. So definitely we should be able to cross the 5-digit mark. Last year we were close to 7,800 odd units. So we are still quite confident we should be able to do that considering the current situation.
Speaking to you about the government intervention during the second wave, what was the impact on production due to the lockdown in Maharashtra? And going forward, what would be your appeal to the government as we stare at the possibility of a third wave?
I think the good thing this time they did was decentralized decision making. So there was a lot of topics left to the state, and the state could decide what has to be done. And the state further decentralized it to the Zilla Parishads, to the Panchayats, or to different MIDC and other bodies. So we were able to work with them, follow the guidelines, reduce staff, because it was not what the government said. I think it was also important for our people to be safe, their families to be safe. So we had to cut down on production for our own interest. Having said that, right now the vaccination is the key to future. And therefore, the first step we did was vaccinate not only our employees, but also all the contractor staff. And now we are vaccinating the family. I think with this, it gives us a very big leap of faith to now continue in spite of challenges or lockdown situation. And I think vaccination should be the currency also to see what percentage of people can work in a premises, what can happen. And I think these policies and norms should get there. Currently, the current law still mandates testing. If you're not vaccinated, I think that's also, I would say, a welcome step. But more and more, I think pushing vaccination, allowing units to open up if the full staff, their family members, or even the contractual staff are vaccinated, is the right step to unlock the economy, at the same time take care of the third wave or others. Having said that, I think the COVID appropriate behavior, I think that's super important, that whichever business is allowed to operate, that should be the prerequisite. Else we have a risk of again going back to the current situation or the earliest.
And in terms of supply side issues, when it comes to importing of critical components that go into manufacturing, how has the supply chain been impacted? Has there been any improvement?
Frankly, the biggest casualty in this entire COVID situation is the supply chain. And when I look into this, you have the semiconductor shortage, you have also containers not being available, and for a company like us, where we are also dependent on some imports at the same time we do local production, this is the biggest stress even now. And we feel that it may take 6 to 8 months time for the situation to normalize. So the biggest challenge in our view may not be the demand itself coming back for the V-shaped recovery, but the supply chain itself trying to stabilize, the freight rates to come back to certain norm. It's just the containers are not available, ships are not available, and that's says a lot. And again, this pandemic has affected different parts of the world differently, and the whole supply chain is under immense stress. So that's, I think, for the automotive industry also in general, and also for us in specific, going to be the biggest challenge in next 6 to 8 months time.